At my wedding reception, my side of the hall was empty, everyone was at my sister's baby shower. But as the music played, my dad's name kept flashing on my phone, 51 missed calls and one word. I should have known something was wrong when I sent out my wedding invitations 6 months ago and my sister Emma announced her baby shower for the exact same date just 2 weeks later. But I was so caught up in wedding planning bliss, so determined to believe my family would never deliberately sabotage the most important day of my life, that I convinced myself it was just an unfortunate coincidence. How naive I was. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how my wedding day became the catalyst for the most satisfying revenge I've ever orchestrated. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning. Emma has always been the golden child. 3 years younger than me, blonde where I'm brunette, bubbly where I'm reserved, she's always had this magnetic quality that draws people in. Growing up, I watched as she effortlessly became the center of attention at every family gathering, every school event, every social situation. My parents, Linda and Robert, absolutely doted on her. She was their miracle baby, they said, born after they thought they couldn't have more children. I learned early to fade into the background. It was easier than competing for scraps of attention that would inevitably go to Emma anyway. I focused on my studies, got good grades, went to college on a scholarship, and built a successful career in marketing. I thought I'd found my place in the world when I met David 3 years ago at a conference in Chicago. David was everything I'd ever wanted in a partner. Kind, intelligent, supportive, and most importantly, he saw me. Really saw me, in a way my family never had. When he proposed last Christmas, I cried happy tears for the first time in years. Finally, I would have my moment. Finally, I would be the star of my own story. We set the date for October 15, 2024. A fall wedding had always been my dream, and we found the perfect venue, a charming historic mansion with golden maples surrounding the property. I spent months planning every detail, from the burgundy and gold color scheme to the 3-course dinner menu. My maid of honor was my best friend Jessica from college, and David's groomsmen were his brother and 2 close friends from work. Everything was perfect. Until Emma's announcement. It was Labor Day weekend when she made her grand reveal at our family barbecue. She was 4 months pregnant with her first child, and she wanted to have her baby shower on October 15th. The same day as my wedding. She claimed she hadn't realized the conflict, that she was so excited about the pregnancy that she'd forgotten to check her calendar. "Oh Sarah, I'm so sorry," she said, her hand dramatically pressed to her forehead. I already sent out the invitations and booked the venue. The community center was only available on that date, and you know how hard it is to get weekend bookings there. I felt my stomach drop, but I forced a smile. "No problem, Em. I'm sure people can make both events work. The wedding ceremony is at 2, so maybe people can come to your shower in the morning and still make it to the wedding." Emma's face fell slightly, as if she hadn't expected me to be so accommodating. "Well, the thing is, I planned it for noon to 4. I thought it would be nice to have a longer celebration, you know? With games and a full lunch." 4 o'clock. My wedding reception started at 4:30. My mother immediately jumped in. "Oh, that's perfect timing. People can go to Emma's shower and then just skip the cocktail hour and join the wedding reception. It all works out." Skip the cocktail hour. The part of the wedding where guests mingle and take photos and celebrate with the bride and groom before dinner. The part I'd been most looking forward to because it's when I'd actually get to talk to people and enjoy their company. But I smiled and nodded because that's what I always did. That's what Sarah did. Sarah didn't make waves. Sarah didn't cause problems. Sarah was understanding and flexible and put everyone else's needs before her own. The next few weeks were a nightmare of logistics. I watched as my guest list dwindled. Aunts and uncles who had already said yes to my wedding started calling to explain that they'd really like to make both events, but Emma's baby shower was such an important milestone and they couldn't miss being there for her first pregnancy. My cousins, including Jennifer who I'd grown up with and considered one of my closest family members, sent regrets with similar explanations. Even some family friends who had known me since childhood chose Emma's shower over my wedding. The worst part was that everyone acted like they were doing me a favor by being honest about their choice. As if I should be grateful that they were letting me know in advance that Emma was more important to them than I was. My parents were the most painful betrayal of all. Mom called me 3 weeks before the wedding to discuss the situation. "Sweetheart, you have to understand, this is Emma's first baby. It's such a special time for her, and she really needs our support. Your father and I have been talking, and we think it would be best if we went to the baby shower. We'll come to the wedding ceremony, of course, but we might need to leave early to help Emma clean up." I sat in my apartment, phone pressed to my ear, and felt something inside me crack. "Mom, it's my wedding day." "I know, honey, and we're so happy for you and David. But Emma is having some anxiety about the pregnancy, and she really needs us there. You're so independent and strong, and we know you'll be fine." "Emma. Well, you know how she is. She needs more support. She needs more support." The golden child, who had never struggled for anything in her life, who had never worked a day through college because mom and dad paid for everything, who had never had to fight for attention or affection or even basic acknowledgement, needed more support than I did on my wedding day. After I hung up, I cried for 2 hours. Then I called Jessica and told her what was happening. She was furious on my behalf in a way that I wasn't even allowed to be for myself. Sarah, this is insane. Your own parents are choosing your sister's baby shower over your wedding? What is wrong with them? Maybe they're right, I said, because a lifetime of conditioning is hard to break. Maybe I'm being selfish. It is Emma's first baby, and I know how much this means to her. Stop it. Jessica's voice was sharp. Just stop. You've spent your entire life making excuses for how they treat you, and I'm sick of watching it. This is your wedding day, Sarah. Your wedding day. If they can't prioritize you for one single day in your life, then they don't deserve to be there. She was right, but it didn't make it hurt any less. The wedding day dawned crisp and beautiful, with golden leaves falling like confetti from the maple trees. David and I had decided to stick with our original plans regardless of who showed up. We weren't going to let my family's dysfunction ruin our day. But standing at the back of the ceremony space, looking out at the rows of chairs, my heart sank. David's side was full. His parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends from work and college. They were all there, dressed in their finest, smiling and chatting and filling the space with warmth and celebration. My side had 23 people. Jessica, of course, looking fierce and beautiful in her burgundy maid of honor dress. My college roommate Katie and her husband. A few work colleagues. My elderly neighbor Mrs. Patterson, who had insisted on coming even though I'd only invited her out of politeness. David's family, bless them, had tried to spread themselves out to make my side look fuller, but the emptiness was still obvious. My parents did show up for the ceremony, sliding into the back row just as the music started. They looked uncomfortable and kept checking their phones. I later learned that Emma had been texting them throughout the entire ceremony, asking when they'd be able to leave. The ceremony itself was beautiful. David's vows made me cry happy tears, and when he kissed me as we were pronounced husband and wife, I felt a moment of pure joy despite everything. We had each other, and that was what mattered. But then came the reception. If the ceremony had been sparsely attended, the reception was a ghost town. David's family did their best to fill the space, but it was painfully obvious that the bride's side of the celebration was virtually non-existent. The DJ kept making announcements for traditional wedding activities, calling for the bride's family to join in, only to have silence follow. During the father-daughter dance, I had to dance with David's dad because my own father had already left for Emma's shower. Uncle Mike, my dad's brother who had raised me as much as my own parents during my childhood, danced with me instead. It should have been a sweet moment, but all I could think about was how my father had chosen helping Emma clean up party decorations over dancing with me at my wedding. The worst part was the phone. All through dinner, my phone kept buzzing with notifications. Text messages from family members at Emma's shower, sending photos of the beautiful decorations, the elaborate cake, the games and gifts. Photos of Emma glowing in a flowing maternity dress, surrounded by everyone I had grown up thinking of as my family. There was one photo that particularly stung. It was my parents, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, and about 30 other family members and friends, all gathered around Emma as she opened presents. They were all laughing and smiling, clearly having the time of their lives. The timestamp on the photo was exactly when I was cutting my wedding cake. But it was around 9 o'clock, during the open dancing portion of the reception, when everything changed. My phone started ringing. Dad's name flashed on the screen, but I was in the middle of dancing with David to our favorite song, so I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Then again. By the time our song ended, I had 7 missed calls from my father. Then the phone rang again, and this time I saw that my mother was calling too. David noticed my expression and squeezed my hand. "Go ahead and answer it," he said. "It might be important." I stepped outside onto the venue's terrace and called my dad back. He answered on the first ring, and I could immediately tell something was very wrong. His voice was strained and shaky. "Sarah, thank God. I've been trying to reach you." "Dad, what's wrong? Is everyone okay?" "It's Emma. There's been an accident. She fell down the stairs at the community center. The ambulance is taking her to St. Mary's Hospital right now." My blood ran cold. "Is she okay? Is the baby okay?" "We don't know yet. The paramedics said she's stable, but she hit her head pretty hard and she's having some cramping." "Sarah, I know today is your wedding, but could you come to the hospital? Emma is asking for you." The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma, who had scheduled her baby shower on my wedding day, who had stolen half my guest list and most of my family's attention, was now asking for me in her moment of crisis. "Of course, Dad. David and I will be right there." I hung up and went back inside to find David. The reception was still in full swing, but there were only about 40 people there, and most of them were his family and friends. I quickly explained the situation to him, and without hesitation, he nodded. "Let's go. Jessica can handle things here." We changed out of our wedding attire into regular clothes and drove to the hospital. The entire way there, my phone kept ringing with updates from various family members. Emma was conscious but scared. The doctors were running tests. Everyone was gathering in the waiting room. When we arrived at St. Mary's around 10:30 p.m., the waiting area was packed with familiar faces. All the people who had chosen Emma's baby shower over my wedding were now clustered together, looking worried and exhausted. They had all clearly come straight from the shower, still dressed in their party clothes, some of the women still wearing their corsages from Emma's event. The looks I got when David and I walked in were a mixture of surprise and what I can only describe as shame. My Aunt Carol actually had the nerve to look relieved to see me, as if my presence somehow absolved her of her earlier choice. "Oh, Sarah, thank goodness you're here. Emma has been asking for you." My mother rushed over and hugged me, and for a moment I felt a flicker of the old family dynamic. The crisis had reset everything, and suddenly I was needed again. We waited for 3 hours. 3 hours of sitting in uncomfortable plastic chairs, drinking terrible coffee from vending machines, and making awkward small talk with relatives who had essentially snubbed me earlier that day. The cognitive dissonance was overwhelming. These same people who had considered Emma's baby shower more important than my wedding were now looking to me to be the stable, reliable family member who would help them through this crisis. Finally, Dr. Martinez came out with an update. Emma had a mild concussion and some bruising, but she and the baby were both going to be fine. She would need to stay overnight for observation, but there was no lasting damage. The relief in the room was palpable. People hugged and cried and started making plans for who would stay with Emma overnight, who would bring her things from home, who would help with follow-up appointments. I should have felt relieved too, and I did. Despite everything, Emma was my sister, and I didn't want anything terrible to happen to her. But as I sat there watching my family rally around her, something inside me finally snapped. These people had made their choice. They had decided that Emma's baby shower was more important than my wedding. They had chosen to celebrate her milestone instead of mine. And now, in her moment of need, they expected me to just fall back into my old role of the dependable family member who would always be there to help, no questions asked. But here's the thing about being invisible for most of your life. You learn to see things that other people miss. You notice patterns, inconsistencies, and details that others overlook because they're too focused on being seen themselves. And I had noticed something very interesting about Emma's fall. When we first arrived at the hospital, I had overheard a conversation between two of the paramedics who had responded to the call. They were talking to a nurse about the incident report, and one of them mentioned that Emma had fallen down only 3 steps, and that witnesses said she seemed to trip over her own feet rather than slip on anything. 3 steps. Emma had supposedly fallen down 3 steps at the community center. But I had been to that community center many times over the years for various family events. The main hall where parties were held was on the ground floor. There was only one staircase in the building, and it led to the second-floor offices that were always locked during weekend events. So why was Emma on the stairs in the first place? I filed this information away and said nothing. I hugged Emma when I was finally allowed to see her, told her I was glad she was okay, and played the part of the concerned sister. But my mind was working, processing, planning. David and I finally left the hospital around 1 in the morning. Our wedding reception had ended hours ago, and we had missed our own party to be there for my family. Again, I had put their needs before my own special day. During the drive home, David was quiet for a long time before finally speaking. "Sarah, I need to tell you something, and I don't want you to get mad at me." "What is it?" "While we were at the hospital, Jessica called me. She said that after we left the reception, she overheard some of your family members talking. Apparently, Emma was texting people during her baby shower, complaining that not enough people had come. She was upset that so many people had chosen your wedding over her shower." I felt a chill run down my spine. What else did Jessica hear? She said Emma was talking about how she wished something would happen to get more attention back on her. Jessica didn't think much of it at the time, but after the accident. He trailed off, but I knew what he was thinking. The same thing I was thinking. "David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Do you think I'm a terrible person for suspecting that Emma might have staged her fall?" He was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "I think Emma has always been the center of attention in your family, and I think she didn't handle it well when that attention was divided today. Do I think she deliberately hurt herself? I don't know. But do I think it's suspicious that she happened to have an accident at the exact moment when your wedding reception was happening and she wasn't getting the attention she expected? Yeah, I do." We spent the rest of the drive in contemplative silence. By the time we got home to our apartment, I had made a decision. I was done being invisible. I was done being the understanding sister, the flexible daughter, the family member who always accommodated everyone else's needs at the expense of her own. If Emma wanted to play games, then I would play games too. But I would play them better. The next morning, I started my investigation. I called the community center and spoke to the janitor who had been working that day. His name was Frank, and he had been the one to find Emma after her fall. I explained that I was Emma's sister and that I was calling on behalf of our family's insurance company to gather information about the incident for our records. This wasn't entirely true, but it gave me the credibility I needed to get detailed information. Frank was happy to talk. He said he had found Emma at the bottom of the 3 steps that led to the second-floor offices. She claimed she had been looking for a bathroom and had gotten confused about the building layout. But Frank thought it was strange because there were clearly marked bathrooms on the main floor, and the second-floor area was obviously marked as off-limits with a locked door at the top of the stairs. Seemed like a nice enough lady, Frank said, but I couldn't figure out why she'd gone up there in the first place. The door was locked, so it's not like she could have gotten into the offices anyway. I thanked Frank for his time and hung up with a growing sense of certainty. Emma's story didn't add up. Next, I called my cousin Jennifer, who had been at the baby shower. I asked her casually how the party had been going when Emma had her accident. "Oh, it was kind of awkward, actually," Jennifer admitted. Emma seemed really stressed about the turnout. She kept checking her phone and complaining that people were leaving early to go to your wedding. She was pretty upset about it, honestly. She disappeared for like 15 minutes right before the accident, and when she came back, she seemed really agitated. 15 minutes. Emma had left her own party for 15 minutes before her mysterious fall down the stairs to a locked door. But I needed more evidence. I needed proof. That's when I remembered something that might be the key to everything. Emma was obsessed with social media. She documented every moment of her life on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. She had been posting constantly about her pregnancy and the baby shower preparations. I spent the next 2 hours going through her social media posts from the day of the wedding. What I found was even more damning than I had expected. Emma had posted a series of Instagram stories throughout her baby shower. The timestamps were very revealing. She had posted a cheerful photo of the decorations at 12:30 p.m., another photo of guests arriving at 1:15 p.m., a video of herself opening presents at 2:45 p.m. But then there was a gap. No post between 2:45 p.m. and 4:30 p.m., when she posted a photo from the hospital with the caption "Scary moment today, but baby and I are both okay. Thank you to everyone who came to support us. #blessed, #pregnancy scares, #family first." The timing was too convenient. Her last post before the accident was at 2:45 p.m., right when my wedding ceremony was ending and people would have been starting to leave her party to come to my reception. The accident happened around 3:15 p.m., according to the hospital records. And her first post afterward was at 4:30 p.m., exactly when my reception was supposed to start. But the most telling piece of evidence was something I found buried in her Twitter history. At 2:50 p.m. on the day of the wedding, Emma had tweeted and then quickly deleted a message. But the internet is forever, and I was able to find a cached version of the tweet. It read, "Can't believe people are leaving my baby shower for a wedding. Don't they realize this is more important? I need to do something to make them stay." I screenshot the cached tweet and saved it to my phone. Combined with Frank's testimony about the strange circumstances of the fall and Jennifer's account of Emma's mood before the accident, I now had a clear picture of what had really happened. Emma had staged her fall to regain the attention that she felt was being unfairly given to my wedding. She had deliberately hurt herself, risked her pregnancy, and traumatized our entire family because she couldn't stand not being the center of attention for one single day. The realization filled me with a cold, calculating anger that I had never felt before. This wasn't just about the wedding anymore. This was about a lifetime of manipulation, of being made to feel invisible, of watching Emma get away with increasingly selfish behavior while I was expected to be understanding and accommodating. It was time for Emma to face some consequences. But I couldn't just confront her directly. Emma was a master manipulator, and she would find a way to turn the situation around and make herself the victim. I needed a more strategic approach. I spent the next week planning my revenge while playing the part of the concerned sister. I visited Emma in the hospital, brought her flowers, and listened to her recount the story of her fall with increasingly dramatic embellishments. Each time she told it, the stairs got steeper, the fall got scarier, and her injuries got more severe. She had also started hinting that she might sue the community center for having unsafe conditions that had caused her accident. This was the final straw for me. Not only had Emma staged the fall, but now she was planning to commit fraud by suing an innocent venue. I couldn't let that happen. The first part of my plan was to gather more evidence. I contacted the community center and asked if they had security cameras in the building. They did, and after I explained that I was representing our family's insurance company and needed the footage to process Emma's potential claim, they agreed to let me view the footage. I had to sign some paperwork and pay a small fee for the copy, but my background in marketing had taught me how to present myself professionally and convincingly. What I saw on that security camera was everything I needed to confirm my suspicions. The video showed Emma leaving the main party room at 2:52 p.m., looking agitated and checking her phone. She walked directly to the staircase leading to the second-floor offices, looking around to make sure no one was watching her. She climbed the 3 steps, tried the locked door, and then positioned herself at the top of the stairs. And then, clear as day, the video showed Emma deliberately throwing herself down the 3 steps, making sure to hit her head on the wall at the bottom. She had staged the entire thing. I asked for a copy of the video footage for family records, and they provided it to me on a USB drive. Now I had everything I needed to expose Emma's lies. But I still needed to be strategic about how I revealed this information. If I just showed the video to my family, Emma would claim I was jealous and trying to sabotage her during a vulnerable time. I needed a way to make the truth undeniable and ensure that Emma faced real consequences for her actions. That's when I remembered that Emma had been talking about suing the community center. If she filed a fraudulent lawsuit, that would be a federal crime. And if I could prove that the lawsuit was fraudulent, Emma would face serious legal consequences. I waited 2 more weeks, playing the supportive sister role while Emma milked her accident for all the sympathy she could get. She had extended her hospital stay by claiming ongoing headaches and anxiety about the pregnancy. She had posted dozens of social media updates about her trauma and how grateful she was for all the support from family and friends. The wedding that she had ruined was barely mentioned by anyone in the family. It was as if it had never happened. Finally, Emma announced that she was going to sue the community center for negligence. She had consulted with a personal injury lawyer and was confident that she had a strong case. That's when I made my move. I called Emma's lawyer directly and asked to speak with him about my sister's case. I told him I was a witness to the accident and had information that might be relevant to the lawsuit. When I met with the lawyer, I brought everything. The cached Twitter screenshot, Frank's testimony about the suspicious circumstances of the fall, Jennifer's account of Emma's mood before the accident, and most importantly, the security camera footage showing Emma deliberately throwing herself down the stairs. The lawyer's face went white as he watched the video. "Ms. Johnson, are you absolutely certain this video is authentic?" "Yes, I obtained it directly from the community center's security system. You can verify its authenticity with them." He was quiet for a long moment, studying the footage. "This changes everything. If your sister files this lawsuit knowing that she deliberately caused her own fall, she could be charged with fraud, perjury, and filing a false police report." "I understand that," I said. "I'm not trying to get my sister in trouble, but I can't let her commit fraud against an innocent business. The community center doesn't deserve to be sued for something that Emma did to herself." The lawyer agreed to contact Emma and her representation to let them know about the video evidence. He also advised me to turn the footage over to the police, since Emma had filed an incident report claiming that the community center's negligence had caused her fall. That evening, I got a frantic call from my mother. "Sarah, what have you done? Emma's lawyer just called and said something about video evidence and fraud charges. What is going on?" "Mom, I need you to sit down, because what I'm about to tell you is going to be hard to hear." I explained everything. The suspicious circumstances of Emma's fall, the timeline that didn't make sense, the cached Twitter post, and finally, the security camera footage that showed Emma deliberately hurting herself. My mother was silent for a long time after I finished talking. Finally, she spoke in a voice that was barely above a whisper. "Are you telling me that Emma staged her accident to get attention away from your wedding?" "Yes, Mom. That's exactly what I'm telling you. But she could have seriously hurt herself. She could have lost the baby. I know. She was willing to risk her pregnancy just to make sure she stayed the center of attention." My mother hung up without another word. The next few days were chaotic. Emma called me screaming, accusing me of betraying her and trying to ruin her life. She claimed the video must be fake, that I had somehow manipulated it because I was jealous of her pregnancy. "You've always been jealous of me, Sarah." She shrieked into the phone. "You can't stand that I'm having a baby and getting attention, so you're making up lies to hurt me." I stayed calm, which seemed to infuriate her even more. "Emma, I have the original video file from the community center's security system. The timestamp data is embedded in the file. There's no way to fake that. I don't care what you think you have. Nobody's going to believe you over me. I'm the one who got hurt. I'm the victim here." But her confidence was already starting to crack. Over the next 48 hours, I watched as Emma's carefully constructed narrative began to unravel in real time. First, her husband Mark called me. His voice was strained and tired, like he hadn't slept in days. "Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Did Emma really stage her fall?" I could hear the pain in his voice, and for a moment I felt sorry for him. Mark was a good guy who genuinely loved Emma, and discovering that your wife is capable of such manipulation had to be devastating. "Mark, I'm going to send you the video. You can watch it and decide for yourself." 20 minutes later, he called me back. He was crying. "Oh God, Sarah. What kind of person does something like this? She could have lost the baby. She could have seriously injured herself. All for what? Attention? I'm sorry, Mark. I really am. I know this has to be incredibly hard for you. The worst part is that I'm starting to remember other things. Times when she's had mysterious accidents or illnesses right when something important was happening for someone else. I thought I was being paranoid, but now. God, what have I married?" That conversation was the beginning of Emma's support system crumbling. Mark, who had been her biggest defender and enabler, was now questioning everything about their relationship. The second crack in Emma's facade came when Aunt Carol called me. Carol had always been Emma's favorite aunt, the one who spoiled her with expensive gifts and constant praise. "Sarah, honey, I need to talk to you about this video everyone's discussing." I haven't seen it yet, but Emma called me crying, saying you're trying to frame her for something she didn't do. I offered to send her the video, and she agreed to watch it. An hour later, she called me back, and her voice was completely different. "Oh my God, Sarah. I watched that video 3 times, and there's no question about what happened. Emma deliberately threw herself down those stairs. But that's not even the worst part." "What do you mean?" I started thinking about other incidents over the years. Remember when Emma had that mysterious stomach bug during your high school graduation? And when she sprained her ankle right before your college graduation party? And that time she had a panic attack during your engagement party? My blood ran cold as the pattern became clear. You think she's been doing this for years? I think Emma has been sabotaging your important moments for a very long time, and we've all been too blind to see it. I'm so ashamed, Sarah. I'm so sorry for how we've treated you. As the video evidence circulated among family members, more and more people began to connect dots that they had previously ignored. Emma's history of convenient crises was suddenly being viewed through a very different lens. The third and most significant crack came from an unexpected source, Emma's own social media history. Jessica, who had been doing her own detective work, discovered that Emma had a pattern of posting cryptic messages before her various accidents over the years. Messages like "sometimes you have to make your own luck and people don't appreciate what they have until something bad happens" always seemed to appear on Emma's social media accounts a day or two before she would have some kind of crisis that required family support. But the evidence was overwhelming, and Emma's own lawyer advised her to drop the lawsuit immediately to avoid criminal charges. The community center agreed not to press charges in exchange for Emma signing a statement admitting that she had caused her own fall and agreeing never to pursue legal action against them. The family fallout was swift and decisive. Once my parents saw the video evidence, they were horrified by Emma's behavior. My father, who had always been Emma's biggest defender, was particularly shaken by the realization that she had been willing to risk her unborn child for attention. Emma tried to spin the story, claiming that she had been having a mental health crisis and that the family should be supporting her instead of condemning her. But the damage was done. The cash Twitter post, combined with the video evidence, made her motivations crystal clear. The most satisfying moment came when Emma was forced to post a public apology on social media, admitting that she had lied about the circumstances of her fall and apologizing to the community center for the false accusations. She also had to personally apologize to each family member who had rushed to the hospital to support her after her staged accident. But the real justice came in the form of natural consequences. Emma's reputation in our family and social circle was permanently damaged. People who had trusted her began to question other stories she had told over the years. Her husband Mark, who had been in the dark about the staged fall, was devastated by the revelation and insisted they go to marriage counseling. Most importantly, my parents finally began to see the pattern of behavior they had been enabling for years. They realized that by always prioritizing Emma's needs and emotions over everyone else's, they had created a person who was willing to hurt herself and others to maintain her status as the family's main character. My mother called me a few weeks after everything came to light and tearfully apologized for missing my wedding reception. "I'm so sorry, Sarah. I can't believe we let Emma manipulate us into abandoning you on your wedding day. You deserved so much better from us." It was an apology I had been waiting for my entire life. David and I decided to have a small ceremony renewal on our 6-month anniversary, surrounded only by people who truly supported us. This time, my parents were there for the entire celebration, and they gave a toast about how proud they were of the woman I had become and how sorry they were for not seeing my strength sooner. Emma was not invited. As for Emma herself, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy 3 months after the incident. She named him Tyler, and despite everything that had happened, I was genuinely happy for her new role as a mother. I hoped that having a child would help her develop some empathy and perspective. But I also maintained strict boundaries. I made it clear that while I was willing to have a relationship with her, it would be on my terms. No more dropping everything to accommodate her crises. No more accepting her manipulation as normal family dynamics. No more making myself invisible so she could shine brighter. The most unexpected outcome of this entire situation was how it changed my relationship with the rest of my family. By standing up for myself and exposing Emma's lies, I had shown them that I was not the pushover they had always taken me to be. I was capable of strategic thinking, careful planning, and decisive action when the situation called for it. They began to see me as a person with my own needs and boundaries, rather than just a supporting character in Emma's story. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I truly belonged in my own family. Looking back on that wedding day, I can honestly say that Emma's scheming backfired spectacularly. She had wanted to steal attention away from my wedding, and she succeeded. But in doing so, she also exposed her true character to everyone who mattered, destroyed her credibility, and ultimately lost the unconditional family support she had always taken for granted. Meanwhile, I gained something much more valuable than a perfect wedding day. I gained the respect of my family, the satisfaction of standing up for myself, and the knowledge that I was capable of strategic revenge when push came to shove. Sometimes the best revenge is simply letting someone's own behavior speak for itself. Emma had revealed who she really was, and no amount of manipulation or victim playing could undo that revelation. The phone calls on my wedding day had ultimately led to the most satisfying payback of my life. And the best part was, I never had to become the villain to get it. I just had to stop being invisible long enough to let the truth come to light. Emma learned that actions have consequences, and I learned that I was much stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. It was a lesson worth waiting 30 years to learn.